What's up guys, thanks for tuning into my channel. So to start this off, we got a bit of an odd rager over here and I haven't really quite heard someone rage like this before, but check this out. Okay, but in all seriousness, I hope that guy is alright. Hopefully he didn't get a panic attack or anything like that. But anyway, onto the video. Which is my top 10 not so obvious tips to get more kills and survive in Warzone. And for these tips I'm going to share with you, I'm not going to go over the super obvious ones that most people already know about, like cutting your parachute to go faster while you're deploying, or how the C4 is the best lethal equipment to use, pretty much. I'll go over instead some of the tips and tricks that I've learned in my many hours of playing this game that I don't see many other channels mention. So hopefully this gives you something fresh. And if you do end up enjoying this video, please feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out a lot as someone just starting out on YouTube. But anyway, without further delay, let's get into these top 10 tips in Warzone, and starting at number 1. We're going to go over a very effective way to splatter people, because when most people try to run over an enemy player while they're on a truck, they'll usually just travel at full speed towards the bad guy. And if your opponent times it right, it's actually pretty easy for them to move out of the way, because at your truck's top speed, you won't be able to turn in time to counter where your opponent is going to quickly jump out of the way. And so you'll instead just drive straight past them, especially with the not too distant nerf to the truck's turn rate. It's actually not that easy to run over someone. So what you'll want to do instead is, when you're just about splattering distance away from him, so you're going full speed, and then just when you're about to like plow through him and run him over, you'll instead want to slow your truck down slightly. And then when you're doing this, your opponent will usually be trying to jump out of the way and going to either the left or the right. So what you'll want to do is wait for them to make their move, see which way they're bolting towards, and then as soon as they do that, you turn your truck and run them over. And it's just super easy doing it this way. And I think this is one of those hidden things that not many people know about. But with that being said, you only really want to attempt this at the very early game, where people have barely looted and don't really have like that much explosives on them, because once people get their loadout crates, pretty much everyone in the game runs C4 at this point. So yeah, running people over on the truck is not a very good idea at that point, and you'll only want to do this in the early game. Okay, now moving on to tip number 2. And this is probably something that a lot of the, I suppose, really competitive COD players already know. And basically, it's to always try and jump shot into corners whenever you are charging in to engage someone and you're pretty certain someone is in there. Now, the reason you want to do this is because it makes your player model very difficult to hit for that split second that you're in the air, which effectively gives you a slight advantage in gunfights when you know someone is behind the corner. And as you jump, it also has minimal impact on your accuracy, so it's just something that you should always get in the habit of doing when you're trying to attack someone that's hiding in a corner. Now, in my opinion, the jump shot is superior to the slide shot, because even though you get a slight movement boost while you're sliding, once your character stops sliding, you're very easy to hit, because to start moving properly again, you then have to stand back up. Whereas with the jump shot, you can immediately begin strafing once you land. And if it's a really bad situation that you've jumped into, you can quickly bolt out of there right away. Okay, so for tip number 3, we're gonna do another vehicle-related tip. And this is probably the most overpowered thing in the game, in my opinion. And that is that when you see someone, what you should do is drive towards them at an angle. And when you're just far enough away from them so that they can't see for you, and you have your player camera view pointed towards them, what you can do is, when you actually time this right, you can exit your vehicle and immediately start shooting towards them. Now, this method essentially gives you free shots to take, because as you exit the vehicle, there's pretty much no delay from when you can start firing, and your opponent will most of the time still be shooting at your truck, and by the time they realize what's happened and that you're already gunning them down, they will either be dead or close to dead. So it's just really very, very little downsides for you as a player. And this works best in solos and duos mode, because in trios or quads, admittedly, when you have quite a few people shooting at your truck, it's very easy to destroy. And if you do get off to engage someone, chances are his ally is nearby and will probably down you before you can get back into your truck. So this is very effective in solo mode, but not so effective in trios and quads. But it's just mind-boggling to me how few people seem to realize this power of the trucks in solo mode, and I think when more people figure this out, it'll become the new meta strategy. Okay, moving to tip number 4, and this is a bit counterintuitive when I mention it, but I promise you it makes perfect sense. And that's if you're playing in a squad and you're camping on a rooftop somewhere with a sniper, don't use your armor plates when you get shot. Instead, what you'll want to do is just take the hits or let yourself get downed, because with your team nearby, they can easily revive you, and since you're all high up, you can be sure to know that you'll be safe, and the people that are shooting at you from down below won't be able to rush in there and kill all your downed allies. So yeah, just let yourself get down, save your armor plates for when you have to run somewhere else. And this is just such a funny thing to do, because you can also waste a lot of their ammo, and by the time they've shot all of their bullets at you, you pretty much can just play around with them. It's just really funny. But with that being said, if they have an airstrike, this can really screw you up. So the best place to do this is at the airport tower that you can get up through the elevator zip line, because in that airport tower, it's the highest point in the game with a roof over it. So if your enemy downs you and they have an airstrike, their airstrike won't be able to hit you while you're under that roof. So yeah, just keep that in mind. This is a good strategy, but it works best when you have a roof over your head and you're at a very high point where the enemy can't actually reach you very easily unless they go up the zip line in the elevator, which takes quite a while. Okay, so this leads us perfectly into tip number 5, and that's to save your airstrike or cluster strike for when you actually down someone when you're playing in squads. Because the moment you down someone, they will have lots of difficulty trying to crawl away in time if you call in your airstrike. And if their buddy tries to revive them, you can get a multi-kill in a lot of situations if you get lucky. So it's a great way to just secure your kill, especially if your opponent is very far away and the down guy manages to crawl behind some cover so you can't finish them off with your rifle. Now, with that being said, some situations you just have to use your airstrike to flush someone out of a camping spot, even if you know you likely won't get the kill. But if you don't encounter that specific scenario where you're getting pinned down by a team in superior cover to yourself, then save your airstrike for after you down someone. Now, moving on to tip number 6, which is don't be afraid to venture into the gas to flank someone or escape a sticky situation. Now, mind you, you'll only really want to do this if you have a gas mask in your inventory, but if you are getting gunned down and you have that mask in your inventory, basically stepping into the gas is a very good way to escape, as the gas mask pretty much gives you plenty of time to armor up fully, and you can then find another angle to re-engage your opponent who is just shooting at you. And chances are they won't be chasing you into the gas, which makes it even more safer to do this. Okay, so on to tip number 7, and I guess this is pretty obvious when you actually think about it, but I don't see a ton of people doing this, and I'll admit I sometimes forget to do this too, and that is, of course, to run in zigzags when you're out in the open. Now, the current meta of Warzone is just filled with building snipers everywhere at the moment, and when someone is running in a straight line out in the open, it makes it very easy to line up a headshot for a one-hit kill. So this also applies to vehicles as well, pretty much. If you're driving a vehicle, it's very easy to snipe you if you're just going in a straight line. So driving in zigzags just really helps you survive and makes you less of an easy target to hit. So that's why I think you should always be doing that whenever you can. Maybe the exception to the rule is if the circle is closing in on you really quickly and just running in a zigzag doesn't cut it and the only option is to go in a straight line to try and escape it, then that's when you'd want to go in a straight line. Okay, and now on to tip number 8, which I've found this works very well in solo mode. I haven't really tried it that much in team games, but in solo mode it's definitely a very good strategy. And that is that when you're at the final few circles and the last free loadout crate drops after circle 4 closes, you should definitely try and grab a riot shield loadout. This just gives you so much control of the situation, because you can choose exactly when you want to engage someone, and chances are if someone sees you, they'll have to ignore you if someone else is nearby, which is almost always the case in the final circle, because if they start shooting at you, someone else will just see them and kill them for you, basically. So yeah, it's pretty much just such a good tool to use at the end, because most people will just have to ignore you, pretty much. Now, when you have this paired up with stun grenades, you can throw your stun grenade while your shield is still up, and it pretty much just gives you a guaranteed way to finish off your opponent. Anyway, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this strategy since it would take way too long, but if you're interested, I made a video on this right before this one, so you can feel free to go and check that out. But in a nutshell, for the loadout you'll want to use, you want to run EOD, restock, and amped, together with C4 and stun grenades as your equipment. And for your primary weapon, an assault rifle like the Grau works best, which is something that you would have probably picked up from your previous loadout drop. And if you can keep that until the end, then that pairs well with the riot shield. Okay, so coming on to tip number 9, and that is when you're landing somewhere hot, either from the round start or fresh out of the gulag, and all you have is that terrible pistol, it is often better to just melee your opponent instead of trying to shoot them with the handgun, but only if they are very close to you or you manage to land very close to them. Now, if you're trying to drop into someone right after the gulag, and maybe, let's say you're going for a revenge kill or something like that, if you try to shoot them with your handgun, they will most of the time just turn around and quickly outgun you with their assault rifle or SMG, or they will just jump around and find some cover before you can kill them, since it's very easy to run away from someone with a pistol. So even if you do manage to get the drop on them, they will still have the advantage in that gunfight, which is just not very good odds in my opinion. On the other hand though, if you land as close as possible and just run in for the melee kill, suddenly the odds are more even, and you can kill them very quickly with just 3 melee hits. Now, even if he shoots back at you, he won't be able to outgun you anymore unless you miss one of your melee hits or he's getting headshots on you. Whereas if you were trying to shoot him with a pistol on the other hand, it's very easy for him to just turn around and quickly go full auto on you and down you before you can do anything. So, with that being said though, overall I'd say the guy with the AR still has the advantage on you if you try and go in for the melee kill, but I think going in for the melee right after you land next to someone is still better than trying to outgun them with a handgun. But mind you, you'll have to be really close to them for this. Like, if you're running at them in the open, then it's just, it won't work because you'll just get shot at before you can get close. Okay, so last but certainly not least is tip number 10. And that's to order your loadout setups in your custom menu. And what I mean by this is grouping your similar weapons together. So for example, the first few can be assault rifles, your best loadout is the one at the very top, and your next set of loadouts could be SMGs and so on. And by grouping it like this, it just makes it so much easier to select the actual class that you want to. I know when I first started playing Warzone, I pretty much had my loadout classes all over the place, and this just made it very difficult to quickly get my class set up. And especially when a loadout crate drops, there's usually another team or two that are going for the same one. So being able to quickly get your class and get out there is just so important. And I've died so many times by taking too long to select my loadout slot. So just bear that in mind. And a bonus tip here: if you're finding yourself using the same loadout all the time, why not just make like the first 3 classes exact clones of each other? So this just makes it so you're very unlikely to select the wrong class setup when you're going for your loadout crate. And I don't think many people do this, but I think I've done that a few times where I just have the first 5 loadouts as my one class setup that I like to use all the time. It just takes out the human error completely, which is quite convenient. Alright guys, so with all that being said, if you enjoyed these 10 tips and you learned something new, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. It means a lot to me as someone just starting out on YouTube, and yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. So see you next time. Bye.